The doorman wouldn't meet my eyes when I walked into our building on East 86th Street. That should have been my first warning. Harold had always greeted me with a smile and asked about my day for the past 3 years. Now he stared at his desk, like the guest registry was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. "Harold!" I called out, dragging my suitcase toward the elevator. "Everything okay?" "Have a good evening, Mrs. Reeves," he mumbled, still not looking up. The way he said my name, Mrs. Reeves, felt like an accusation. I noticed Fernanda, the evening concierge, quickly turn away when I glanced in her direction. The lobby that usually hummed with friendly chatter felt silent as a tomb. My phone buzzed. Another text from my mother. I'd been ignoring them since boarding in Cancun, too hungover and ashamed to deal with whatever family drama was brewing. The elevator arrived with its familiar ding, and I escaped inside, pressing 14 with a finger that still showed traces of the hot pink nail polish I'd gotten for the trip. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt longer than usual. Maybe it was the tequila still working its way out of my system from last night's farewell party at the resort. Maybe it was the guilt sitting heavy in my stomach like a stone. Or maybe it was just the universe giving me one last moment before my world imploded. I caught my reflection in the elevator's mirrored walls. My spray tan was already fading unevenly, leaving patches of pale skin like a map of my poor decisions. The Cancun bracelet from the resort still circled my wrist, neon orange proof of where I'd been, what I'd done. My wedding ring sat loose on my finger. I'd lost weight during the trip, too nervous to eat much, too busy drinking to care. I fumbled with my keys at apartment 14G. The lock felt different somehow, stiffer, like it had been changed, but that was ridiculous. I'd only been gone 5 days. The door swung open to nothing. Not nothing as in the apartment was empty. Nothing as in every single piece of furniture, every photo, every book, every memory of our life together had vanished. The hardwood floors stretched bare from wall to wall. Even the curtains were gone, leaving the windows naked against the Manhattan skyline. My suitcase hit the floor with an echo that bounced off the empty walls. "Jason?" My voice cracked. "This isn't funny." But I knew it wasn't a joke. The apartment didn't smell like his cologne anymore. It smelled like pine sol and fresh paint, like someone had scrubbed away every trace of our existence. Then I remembered the lock. It wasn't stiff because it was old. It was stiff because it was new. He'd changed the locks. He must have left my key in the old one just long enough for me to get inside and see this. The walls showed pale rectangles where our pictures had hung. The wedding photo from the plaza, the candid from our honeymoon in Santorini. The silly photo booth strip from my company Christmas party where Jason wore the ridiculous elf hat just to make me laugh. All gone. Even the tiny holes from the nails had been spackled over and painted. I walked through the empty living room in a daze. My heels clicked and echoed with each step, the sound bouncing back at me like an accusation. The corner where Jason's reading chair had sat for 7 years was just empty space now. The bookshelf we'd built together during lockdown, gone. The coffee table where we'd eaten Chinese takeout every Friday, vanished. The kitchen was worse. Every gadget Jason had bought me over the years, the KitchenAid mixer for my birthday, the espresso machine for Christmas, the air fryer I'd begged for, all gone. Even the magnetic poetry on the refrigerator, where we'd leave silly messages for each other, had been scraped away. The fridge itself stood empty and unplugged, door hanging open like a mouth frozen in shock. I pulled out my phone with trembling fingers. 17 missed calls from my mother, 23 from my sister Rachel, and one text from Jason sent 3 days ago. "Check your email." That was it. 3 words that made my legs go weak. I sank down onto the cold floor and opened Gmail. There it was, sent Wednesday at 2:47 p.m., while I was probably on my 3rd margarita by the pool. Vanessa. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know about Cancun. I know about Trevor. I know about all of it. I've taken what's mine and left what's yours. Your clothes are in the bedroom closet. Your jewelry is in the bathroom drawer. The divorce papers are on the kitchen counter with a pen. Don't try to find me. Don't call. Don't show up at my work. We're done. I hope it was worth it. Jason. Trevor. He knew about Trevor. My hands shook as I forced myself to stand and walk through the apartment. Our bedroom, my bedroom now, contained exactly what he'd said. My clothes hung in the closet like ghosts. My jewelry box sat alone in the bathroom drawer. And there on the kitchen counter, held down by a silver pen I'd given him for his birthday, were the divorce papers. I called him, straight to voicemail. Called again. The number had been disconnected. How? How did he know? The Cancun trip had been planned for months. My college roommate Brittany's bachelorette party, 5 days at an all-inclusive resort with 6 girls from Syracuse. What Jason didn't know was that Brittany had also invited her cousin Trevor, the same Trevor I'd dated junior year, the same Trevor who'd dumped me for a sorority girl and left me crying in my dorm room for a week. "It'll be fine," Brittany had assured me when she mentioned he'd be there with his groomsmen. "It's a big resort. You probably won't even see each other." But we did see each other. The first night at the welcome dinner, there he was. 35 now instead of 21, but still with that crooked smile and those green eyes that had made me stupid all those years ago. Still single, still charming, still looking at me like I was the only woman in the room. "Vanessa," he'd said, pulling me into a hug that lasted too long. "God, you look amazing. How long has it been?" 14 years. 14 years since he'd shattered my heart. I was married now. Happily married to Jason, who fixed my computer at work and brought me flowers every Friday and never once made me cry. But Trevor bought me a drink. Then another. Then we were dancing at the resort nightclub, and his hands were on my waist, and I was 21 again, desperate for his approval, desperate to prove I was good enough this time. The music was loud, the kind of thumping bass that makes thinking impossible. The other girls were scattered around the club. Brittany grinding with some groomsmen, her cousin Sarah doing shots at the bar, everyone lost in their own vacation bubble. Nobody paying attention to me swaying against my college ex, his breath hot on my neck. "You know," Trevor said, his lips brushing my ear, "I used to think about you." After, wondered what would have happened if I hadn't been such an idiot. "You have a girlfriend," I managed to say, some last shred of sense trying to surface. "Had," he corrected. "We broke up 3 months ago. That's why I almost didn't come to this thing. But now," his hands tightened on my waist, "now I'm really glad I did." I should have heard the line for what it was. The practiced smoothness of a man who'd used it before. But the tequila and the music and the way he was looking at me. God, the way he was looking at me, like I was something special instead of a married woman in her 30s with crow's feet and a mortgage. It all combined to shut down my better judgment. "I was an idiot," he whispered in my ear. "Letting you go was the biggest mistake of my life." The words I'd waited 14 years to hear. The validation I'd craved since he'd chosen that sorority girl over me, since he'd made me feel like I wasn't pretty enough, fun enough, good enough. Here was Trevor Mitchell, the one who got away, telling me I'd been the prize all along. I should have walked away, should have gone back to my room and FaceTimed Jason like I'd promised. Instead, I let Trevor kiss me on the dance floor. Let him walk me to his room. Let him do things that made my wedding ring feel like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The kiss was nothing like I remembered. 14 years of buildup, and it was just wet and tasted like rum and bad decisions. But I was committed now, wasn't I? I'd already crossed the line. My phone buzzed in my clutch, probably Jason texting goodnight like he always did, and I ignored it. Trevor's room was a junior suite, bigger than the one I was sharing with Rachel. His groomsmen must have gone somewhere else because we were alone, and the quiet after the club felt deafening. "You sure about this?" he asked, already pulling his shirt off. Was I? My wedding ring caught the light from the bathroom, sending little diamonds of reflection across the wall. 7 years of marriage reduced to a light show in a Mexican hotel room. Jason was probably in bed by now, in our bed, maybe watching the true crime documentaries he loved, and I pretended to enjoy. "Yeah," I lied. "I'm sure." The worst part was how mechanical it all was. This thing I'd thrown my marriage away for, this reconnection with my college love, this fantasy I'd apparently been nursing for 14 years. It was awkward and uncomfortable and over-embarrassingly fast. Trevor rolled away from me almost immediately, checking his phone while I stared at the ceiling and wondered what I'd done. "That was nice," he said, already sounding bored. "Hey, the guys are at the swim-up bar. You mind if I—" He was already getting dressed. I was just another checkmark on his Cancun conquest list, and we both knew it. I gathered my clothes, my hands shaking so hard I could barely manage the zipper on my dress. The next morning, I woke up in his bed with a hangover, and a guilt so heavy I could barely breathe. Trevor was already gone. A scribbled note on resort stationery said, "Had to hit the golf course." "Last night was fun. -T fun, that's what he called it. I destroyed everything for fun. I grabbed my clothes and ran, but the damage was done. And somehow, 3 days later, Jason knew everything. I stumbled back to my shared room at 6 in the morning, hoping Rachel would still be asleep. She wasn't. She was sitting on her bed, fully dressed, phone in hand. "Where were you?" Her voice was ice. I went for a walk on the beach." "A walk on the beach? In your club dress?" She held up her phone, the screen glowing. "Don't lie to me, Vanessa. Trevor posted it." My stomach dropped. "What?" She turned the phone around. There it was, posted at 2:47 a.m., a video of me from behind, walking down the hotel hallway. The caption read, "When the college reunion gets interesting." "He tagged you, Vanessa," Rachel said, her voice shaking with anger, "and he tagged the resort." And he tagged Brittany. Jason's cousin follows Brittany. Everyone back home is already seeing this. Did you even think? "Rachel, I don't want to hear it." She got up, grabbing her beach bag. "I'm switching rooms with Sarah." "I can't even look at you right now." I called Brittany. "Did you tell Jason about Trevor?" "What? No. Why would I wait? What about Trevor?" "Nothing." "Never mind." But she knew. They all knew. The way the other girls had looked at me the rest of the trip. The whispered conversations that stopped when I walked by. Someone had told him. Someone had seen me leave Trevor's room and decided my husband deserved to know. I spent the next hour sitting in that empty apartment, calling everyone. Jason's brother in New Jersey, his best friend Mike, his coworkers. Either they didn't answer, or they told me the same thing. "He doesn't want to talk to you." Finally, I called my landlord. Maybe this was all some misunderstanding. Maybe Jason had just moved our stuff to storage while he renovated or something. "Mrs. Reeves." Greg Kaufman's voice was formal, distant. Nothing like the friendly man who'd renewed our lease just 6 months ago. "Mr. Reeves informed me of the situation. He's removed himself from the lease as of Wednesday. You'll need to either qualify for the apartment on your own income or vacate by the end of the month." "But I can't afford $2,800 on my own. That's something you'll need to figure out." "I'm sorry about your situation, but I have a business to run." $2,800, plus utilities, plus the cable and internet Jason had always handled. My salary as a marketing manager was decent, but Jason made twice what I did as a software engineer. We'd chosen this apartment together based on our combined income. I hung up and dialed my bank. Maybe Jason had just moved his portion of our joint savings. "I'm sorry, ma'am," the representative said after pulling up my accounts. "That account was closed 3 days ago. Both parties have to be present to close a joint account, but Mr. Reeves had documentation of extenuating circumstances." "What documentation?" "I'm not at liberty to say." Your individual checking shows a balance of $1,432. $1,400. That wouldn't even cover 1 month's rent. My sister finally called back. Vanessa, what the hell happened? Jason called Mom 3 days ago, said you two were getting divorced and he was leaving New York. Mom's been trying to reach you. I was in Cancun. Brittany's bachelorette party. Yeah, I know where you were. The whole family knows where you were. It's all over Instagram. You and some guy. Instagram? My blood turned to ice. Brittany's cousin posted videos. You grinding on him at the club, making out, walking to his room. Jesus, Vanessa, your coworkers follow her. Your neighbors follow her. Everyone saw everything. I hung up and opened Instagram with numb fingers. There it was on Trevor's story, posted 4 days ago. A video of us dancing, my wedding ring visible on my hand as I wrapped my arms around his neck. Another of us kissing. The caption, reconnecting with my college sweetheart. What happens in Cancun? The views, God, the views. Over 3,000. Comments from people I knew, people from our building, people from Jason's office, and there was Jason's best friend, Mike. Bro, you seeing this? That was how he knew. That was how everyone knew. While I was lounging by the pool, pretending nothing had happened, my marriage was dying in real time on social media. I called my mother. She answered on the first ring. Vanessa Marie, what have you done? Mom, I need... That boy loved you. Loved you more than anything. And you threw it away for what? Some college fling who treated you like garbage? It was a mistake. I was drunk. You were drunk for 5 days? You were drunk when you got on that plane knowing he'd be there? Don't insult my intelligence. She was right. Brittany had warned me Trevor would be there. I'd had weeks to back out, to tell Jason, to make different choices. Instead, I'd bought new bikinis and got a spray tan and told myself it would be fine, that I was over Trevor, that seeing him wouldn't matter. Where's Jason? I asked. Gone. Moved back to Ohio, last I heard. His mother called me sweet woman. Said he's staying with them while he figures things out. Said he's not doing well. Ohio. He'd left New York entirely. Left his job, his friends, his life here. Because of me. The next days were hell. I couldn't go to work. Turned out my coworkers had all seen the videos. My boss suggested I take some time off to handle my personal situation. Translation: don't come back until this scandal dies down. I couldn't leave the apartment without running into neighbors who'd seen everything online. Mrs. Patterson from 14B actually clutched her purse when she saw me in the elevator like infidelity was contagious. The doorman still wouldn't look at me. The divorce papers sat on the counter for a week before I finally signed them. Uncontested. He wanted nothing except his freedom. No alimony, no splitting of assets, nothing. He'd already taken his name off the lease. The rent was due in 2 weeks. $2,800 I didn't have because Jason had always handled our finances. I tried to sublease, but property management informed me I couldn't without the primary leaseholder's permission. Jason was the primary leaseholder. He'd removed himself but hadn't given permission for changes. I was trapped in an empty apartment I couldn't afford, surrounded by the echo of my choices. Trevor never called. After I'd run from his room that morning, he'd texted once. Last night was fun. Hope you're not weird about it. When I didn't respond, he moved on. Posted photos with 3 different women the rest of the trip. By the time he was back in Boston, he'd probably forgotten my name again. My friends tried to help at first. You made a mistake, they said. Everyone makes mistakes. But there's a difference between a mistake and a choice. A mistake is forgetting to call your husband before bed. A choice is spending the night in another man's room while your wedding ring sits on his nightstand. 2 months later, I ran into Jason's coworker at a coffee shop near my office. How is he? I asked, hating how desperate I sounded. She looked at me with a mixture of pity and disgust. He's back in Columbus. Got a job with his old company. He's managing. Has he started dating someone? Number. He can barely get out of bed most days from what I hear. You really messed him up, Vanessa. I wanted to defend myself. Wanted to explain that it wasn't supposed to happen. That Trevor had meant nothing. That 5 days shouldn't erase 7 years. But she was already walking away. The eviction notice came 3 months after Cancun. I'd missed 2 rent payments trying to juggle all the bills alone. My salary barely covered groceries and minimums on the credit cards Jason used to pay off in full every month. I'd never realized how much he'd taken care of until it was all on me. I moved back with my parents in Queens. 34 years old, sleeping in my childhood bed with NSYNC posters on the walls. My mother made disappointed sounds every time she looked at me. My father just shook his head and muttered about that nice boy I'd thrown away. 6 months after Cancun, Rachel showed me a photo from Facebook. Jason at someone's barbecue, attempting to smile. He'd lost weight. His face looked hollow, his eyes empty. He was trying, but you could see the damage I'd done. He loved you so much, Rachel said quietly. Do you know he called me before he proposed? Wanted to make sure he had the right ring, the one you'd pointed out at that store in Soho. He spent 3 months saving for it. I still wore that ring on a chain around my neck. Couldn't bring myself to sell it. Couldn't bear to wear it on my finger. It hung there like a weight, reminding me of vows I'd broken for a man who couldn't even remember my middle name. The worst part? Jason never turned cruel. Never posted about me online, never told people the sordid details, never tried to hurt me back. He just disappeared. Deleted his social media, changed his number, vanished like our 7 years together had been erased. His friend Mike told me later that Jason had known about Trevor before I left. Brittany had tagged me in a post about the trip, and someone had commented, "Isn't that your ex in the background?" Jason had looked up Trevor, seen what he looked like, noticed he'd be at the same resort. "He almost asked you not to go," Mike said, "but he trusted you." Said he didn't want to be the jealous husband who kept his wife from her friends. He actually defended you when I said it seemed sketchy. That made it worse, somehow. That he'd seen the danger and chosen to trust me. That I'd known exactly what I was walking into and walked anyway. A year later, I was still in Queens, still single, still wearing my wedding ring on a chain. I'd been on a few dates, setups from well-meaning friends, but they all ended the same. Men who Googled me found the Instagram videos that lived forever in the digital ether. Men who didn't Google me eventually heard the story from someone who did. I was the woman who'd cheated on her vacation and got publicly exposed. The cautionary tale wives told their husbands when warning about girls' trips. Trevor got married that spring, to an investment banker from Connecticut with a perfect smile and no messy history. Brittany posted photos from the wedding. He looked happy. He looked like a man who'd never destroyed someone's marriage in Cancun, because for him, I'd been a brief entertainment between courses at the resort buffet. I found out Jason was dating through my mother, of all people. His mom had kept in touch with mine, 2 mothers bonded by their children's spectacular failure. "She's a teacher," my mother reported over dinner. "Elementary school. Very sweet, very stable. Nothing like me. Nothing like the woman who gambled her future for 5 days of feeling wanted by the man who'd already rejected her once." "Her name is Emma," my mother continued, unable to help herself. 28. Never married. Wants children. Everything I wasn't. Everything I couldn't give him anymore. "Good for him," I said, and meant it. He deserved someone who wouldn't gamble their future for the attention of an ex. But that night, alone in my parents' house, I looked up Emma Winters on Facebook. I know I shouldn't have. I know it was torture. But I had to see the woman who was giving Jason the life I'd thrown away. She was pretty in that wholesome Ohio way. Brown hair and a sensible ponytail, minimal makeup, genuine smile. Her profile was mostly pictures with her students, her golden retriever, her family at backyard barbecues. Normal, stable, safe. There was one photo of her with Jason, posted 3 weeks ago. They were at some outdoor festival, both holding corn dogs and laughing at something off camera. Jason looked not happy exactly, but lighter. Like the weight I'd put on his shoulders was finally lifting. The comments killed me. So happy to see you smiling again. She's perfect for you. About time something good happened to you, buddy. I was the bad thing that had happened to him, the disaster he'd survived. 2 years after Cancun, I was promoted at work, finally able to afford my own place again, a studio in Astoria that cost almost as much as our old one-bedroom. I packed up my childhood room, enduring my mother's final comments about that beautiful apartment on the Upper East Side I'd lost. The studio was small but mine. I bought furniture from IKEA, hung curtains from Target, tried to build something that felt like a life. But every night when I came home to the empty space, I remembered that other empty apartment. The one Jason had cleaned out while I was dancing in Mexico. The one that had been full of our life together until I decided 5 days of adventure mattered more than 7 years of love. My therapist said I needed to forgive myself, that people make mistakes, that growth comes from pain, that I couldn't change the past. But some mistakes you don't come back from. Some betrayals leave scars that never fade. Some losses teach you the value of what you had only after it's gone forever. I still think about that morning sometimes. Walking into our apartment to find it empty, seeing those divorce papers on the counter, realizing that while I'd been playing out some college fantasy, my husband was packing up our entire life. He must have worked fast, must have had help, must have been planning it from the second he saw those videos. Later, Mike told me the whole story over drinks, after enough time had passed that he could stand to be in the same room as me. "He called me Tuesday night," Mike said, staring into his beer. "It was like 3 a.m, your time in Mexico." He was crying so hard he couldn't talk at first. I'd never heard him like that, never. I gripped my wine glass tighter. He'd been scrolling Instagram when Trevor's post popped up. "You know Jason?" He didn't even follow Trevor, but the algorithm showed it to him anyway because Brittany had tagged you in so many photos. There you were, walking into another man's hotel room. "Mike, He threw up," Mike interrupted. "Ran to the bathroom and puked his guts out. Then he called me and asked me to help him move out. Said he couldn't be in that apartment when you got back. Couldn't look at the bed you'd shared, the pictures on the walls, any of it." "So you helped him?" "Me, his brother, 2 guys from his office. We worked in shifts for 2 days. Jason couldn't stop shaking the whole time. Kept saying, 7 years, Mike. 7 years, and she threw it away for him. For the guy who already hurt her once." The wine tasted like acid in my mouth. "You know what the worst part was?" Mike leaned forward. "He'd bought you something. An anniversary gift. 7 years he wanted to do something special. Had this whole plan to surprise you when you got back from Cancun." "What was it?" "A trip to Paris. First-class tickets, 5-star hotel, the works. He'd been learning French on that app, wanted to be able to order your coffee in the morning. Had a whole itinerary planned. The Louvre, Versailles, some cooking class he found that you mentioned wanting to do 3 years ago. He remembered everything you ever said you wanted to do." I was crying now, not caring who saw. "He canceled it all Tuesday night. Lost probably $5,000 in deposits. Didn't care. Just kept saying she chose him. After everything, she chose him." Mike finished his beer and stood up. "I shouldn't have told you all that. But you know what? I wanted you to know what you threw away. Jason's the best guy I know, and you broke him for some asshole who posted about you like you were a trophy." He was right. Everything he said was right. I'd had a man who learned French to order my coffee, and I'd thrown him away for a man who couldn't even remember to wake me up before his golf game. I wonder if he cried while packing our wedding photos. If he hesitated before taking down the art we'd picked out together. If he stood in that empty apartment one last time before locking the door forever. Mike had told me that too, before he left the bar that night. The wedding photos were the hardest for him, he'd said. We were wrapping them in bubble wrap and he just broke down. Held your wedding portrait and sobbed. He kept rubbing his thumb over your face in the picture, just saying, "Why? Why, Vanessa?" Said you looked so beautiful that day, so happy. Said he thought that would be them forever. Then he made us take everything to a storage unit. Couldn't bear to throw any of it away. Couldn't bear to keep it either. It's probably still there, gathering dust. Your whole life together in a 10 by 10 box off the highway. But mostly I think about the man I destroyed for a 5-day fling with someone who didn't love me then and doesn't think about me now. Jason, who brought me soup when I was sick and held my hand during scary movies and never once made me feel like I wasn't enough. Jason, who trusted me completely and paid for that trust with public humiliation and private devastation. His mother had called me once, about 6 months after the divorce was finalized. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "I'm not calling to yell at you," she said, her voice tired. "I just thought you should know how he's doing." "How is he?" "He's in therapy 3 times a week, can't sleep without medication, has panic attacks when he sees couples holding hands. My son, who used to be the most trusting, loving person I knew, now can't even consider dating because he's terrified of being hurt again. Mrs. Reeves, I'm so—" "He still wears his wedding ring, Vanessa." Takes it off for work, but I see him putting it back on at home. Says he's not ready to let go yet. It's been a year, and my baby boy still can't let go of the woman who betrayed him for a vacation fling. She hung up without a goodbye. I cried for 3 hours after. They say karma isn't real, but I disagree. Karma is living with the knowledge that you had everything and threw it away for nothing. Karma is seeing your ex-husband slowly rebuild while you're still stuck in the wreckage you created. Karma is knowing that somewhere in Columbus, there's a good man who can't trust anymore because of you. Karma is also running into Trevor 2 years later at Penn Station. I was rushing to catch the 6:47 to Queens, juggling my work bag and a sad desk salad, when I heard his voice. "Vanessa? Holy shit, is that you?" He looked exactly the same. Same crooked smile, same expensive suit, same easy confidence. His arm was around a blonde who looked like every other blonde he'd ever dated. "Trevor," I managed. "Babe, this is—" He paused, snapping his fingers. "Vicky?" "No, wait, Vanessa, that's right. We went to Syracuse together." He hadn't just paused. He'd gotten my name wrong. Not the woman I reconnected with in Cancun. Not my college ex. Just someone he went to school with. I'd imploded my entire life for a man who could barely remember my name 2 years later. "Nice to meet you," the blonde said, already bored. "Yeah, so, good seeing you," Trevor said, already walking away. "We should grab coffee sometime." As if I were just a name he almost remembered, and not the woman who burned her life down for him. We wouldn't. We both knew it. I was just another face in his crowd of conquests, another story he might tell his buddies over beers if he even remembered that much. I stood there in Penn Station, watching him disappear into the crowd, and laughed. Actually laughed, loud enough that people stared. Because it was perfect, wasn't it? I'd traded a man who memorized my coffee order for a man who forgot my name. I'd given up someone who planned trips to Paris for someone who couldn't plan past his next orgasm. 5 days in Cancun, that's all it took. 5 days of sun and tequila and bad decisions that felt good in the moment. 5 days that cost me my marriage, my home, my reputation, and the best man I've ever known. The doorman in my new building doesn't know my story. He smiles and says good morning like I'm just another tenant. Like I didn't destroy everything for a man who posted beach selfies while my marriage burned. But I know. And I'll know forever. 5 days in Cancun cost me everything, and I paid full price.